There's a specific kind of person who wakes up on their birthday, checks the date on their phone and thinks, and then puts the phone down and makes coffee. No countdown, no plans, just another morning. And if you've ever been that person or loved someone like that, you've probably wondered whether something's wrong, whether the indifference is actually hiding something. It usually is, but not what you think. Welcome to Decoded Psychology, where we don't just describe behavior. We go underneath it to the wiring, the history, the hidden logic that most people carry their whole lives without ever reading the label. Here's what nobody tells you about people who don't celebrate their birthdays. They are not a single type. They look identical from the outside, calm, unbothered, almost eerily low maintenance about the whole thing, but underneath, there are at least 3 completely different psychological stories running. And which one is yours matters more than whether or not you or had cake. We'll come back to that. The first story starts early. Think about what happens when a child's birthday disappears into the noise. Not dramatically, nobody forgot on purpose. It's just that the parents were overwhelmed, or the family didn't make much of celebrations, or the one time they did plan something, it quietly fell apart. Martin Seligman spent decades studying what happens to a brain when positive expectations are met, repeatedly, with silence. He called it learned helplessness, the way the mind eventually stops reaching for something it has learned not to receive. The birthday stops being a wish. It becomes a test you've already failed too many times to bother taking. So the person doesn't go cold, they go quiet. There's a difference. Cold is indifference. Quiet is protection. The second story is less painful and more modern. It's about a kind of cognitive overload that turns time itself into something slippery. Neuroscientist David Eagleman has written about the way the brain handles time under pressure, how when you're deep in the grind, moving from task to task with no real pause, your temporal perception compresses. Days stop having texture. They blur. The birthday isn't forgotten. It just arrives without fanfare because the person's nervous system is already running at maximum volume, and there's no bandwidth left to feel celebratory about a date. This isn't about values, it's about capacity, and the world we built is extraordinarily good at draining it. But here's the third story. This is the one that tends to make people uncomfortable because it doesn't fit neatly into either wound or exhaustion. It just looks like peace. Deci and Ryan spent years building what became known as self-determination theory, the research-backed idea that genuine psychological well-being isn't driven by external recognition. It comes from 3 internal sources: autonomy, competence, and a sense of connection that doesn't depend on being or applauded for existing. People who have quietly done that inner work, who don't require a designated day to feel valued, they don't avoid birthdays out of sadness. They just don't need them. And you've probably noticed something else about these people. They tend to carry that same quality everywhere. They don't need the meeting to end with their name mentioned. They don't post about the project until it's done, if at all. They're not performing aliveness. They're just living it. Now here's the part I promise we'd come back to. The 3 stories look identical. The same quiet morning. The same unbothered shrug. But one of them is a scar that hardened into habit. One is a symptom of a culture that forgot to leave room for human beings to be human. And one is something that took years to build intentionally. The only way to know which one you're actually living is to ask yourself something honest. If every person in your life remembered, if they showed up, if the day was everything, or would that change something real for you? Or would it just be nice, the way a sunny Tuesday is nice? That answer tells you more about your psychology than any birthday ever could. What we do with our own milestones is just one small window into how we've learned to receive or not receive good things. And most of us have never looked through that window clearly. If this landed somewhere specific for you, consider subscribing. This channel exists for the moments when something clicks about yourself that you didn't have words for before. And next time we're looking at something that happens in almost every close relationship, something most people mistake for love but is actually something much older and stranger. You won't want to walk out before that one starts.